February 12, 2025, was the day my life changed forever, the day I crossed the boundary between life and death. Hello, my name is Lily Allen, and what I am about to share with you is not a dream, not a hallucination, and not a fantasy. It is real, more real than anything I have ever known. On that fateful day, I died. Not figuratively, not metaphorically, but literally. For exactly 7 minutes and 46 seconds, my heart stopped beating, my lungs took no breath, and my body lay lifeless. But while doctors and nurses fought desperately to revive me, I was somewhere else. Somewhere beyond human comprehension. Somewhere that shattered everything I thought I knew about existence. I saw, I felt, and I understood things that had been hidden for centuries. Time as we know it did not exist there, space was not limited by walls, gravity, or the laws of physics. I was not alone. There was a presence, one that filled me with overwhelming power and truth. It was neither vague nor distant. It was undeniable. In that moment, I realized something profound: death was not an end, but a transition. And what awaited on the other side was a reality more vivid, more intense, and more powerful than anything in this world. But this experience was not just for me. The message I received was bigger than myself, bigger than any individual. It was a message for the world. It was a call, a revelation, an unveiling of truths that have been concealed for generations. And above all, it was a message for the Black community, my community. A truth stolen from us, erased from history books, buried under centuries of lies. A truth that, if known, would change everything. I was sent back with a purpose. My life was returned to me, but I was no longer the same. I woke up gasping for air, my heart pounding in my chest, the echoes of what I had witnessed still reverberating through my soul. I knew I could not stay silent. I knew I had to share this truth, no matter the cost. Today, I stand before you as a witness. I am not here to convince you with arguments, nor to debate what is real and what is not. I am here to testify, to tell you what I saw, what I learned, and why it matters. This is my story, but it is also your story. It is our awakening. What happens after death? What truths have been hidden from us? And most importantly, what does it all mean for the future of our people? Stay with me. Listen closely. Because what I am about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about life, death, and destiny. It was an ordinary day, just like any other. I woke up to the sound of my alarm buzzing, groggy but ready to start another routine morning. The sun peeked through my bedroom window, casting golden streaks of light across the walls. I stretched, got out of bed, and began going through the motions, brushing my teeth, making coffee, scrolling absent-mindedly through my phone. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Yet, deep inside me, something felt off. There was a strange tightness in my chest, not pain, not discomfort, but a weight. A sensation I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't fear, nor was it anxiety. It was just there, pressing against me, whispering something I couldn't understand. I shook it off. Just another busy day ahead, I thought. After grabbing my keys and heading to my car, I took a deep breath. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was the stress of work. I tried to push the unease aside, but it lingered in the back of my mind, an invisible shadow trailing my every move. I pulled out of my driveway, merging onto the main road, my hands steady on the wheel. The morning traffic was the same as always, cars moving in a slow, predictable rhythm, people honking impatiently, cyclists weaving between lanes. I turned on the radio, hoping that music would drown out the strange feeling gnawing at me. But as I approached the intersection, time seemed to slow. I saw it before I had a chance to react, a red truck, massive and unforgiving, barreling toward me at full speed. The driver's face was a blur, but the terror in my heart was sharp and immediate. For a split second, everything around me became eerily silent. The world held its breath. My own heartbeat pounded in my ears, deafening. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white, but there was nothing I could do. No space to swerve. No time to escape. Then, impact. A violent, crushing force slammed into my car, twisting metal, shattering glass, breaking everything in its path. My head snapped back. A deafening crash filled the air. And then, nothing. Darkness. A void unlike anything I had ever known. It was not sleep. It was not unconsciousness. It was something else. Then, suddenly, I was awake, but not in the way I had ever been before. I opened my eyes and found myself floating. Below me, I saw my car, a mangled wreck of crumpled steel and shattered glass. I saw my own body lying lifeless inside, blood trickling from a wound on my forehead. Paramedics were surrounding me, working frantically, shouting commands to one another, their faces etched with urgency. I could hear them, see them, but I felt nothing. No pain. No panic. No fear. Only peace. A strange, all-consuming peace. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced in my life. No worries, no suffering, no confusion. Just a sense of weightlessness, a feeling of complete release from everything that had ever burdened me. Then, I felt it, a pull. An invisible force, strong yet gentle, guiding me upward. It wasn't something I could see, but I could feel it calling me, drawing me towards something greater. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't resisting. Somehow, I knew, I was meant to go. Higher and higher I rose, leaving behind the flashing lights, the frantic voices, the wreckage of my former life. And as I ascended, I knew, this was only the beginning. I was no longer in the world I had known. The moment I felt the pull guiding me upward, everything around me shifted. The chaos of the accident, the sounds of sirens, the broken body I left behind, all of it faded into the distance like a forgotten memory. And then, I found myself in a space unlike anything I had ever imagined. It was vast, endless, yet intimate, as if it were created just for me. A golden glow filled the atmosphere, not from a sun, not from any visible source, but from the very essence of this place itself. The air, or whatever it was, shimmered with warmth, thick with an indescribable presence. It was not just light, it was life. Ahead of me, in the distance, I saw it, a light unlike any other. It was not just brightness, it was a force, a living, pulsating energy that radiated something more than warmth. It was love itself, wrapping around me, drawing me in. I felt its embrace without it even touching me. And then, he stepped forward from the light. Jesus. The moment I saw him, I knew. There was no hesitation, no doubt, no questioning. Every part of my being recognized him, not from paintings, not from stories, but from something deeper, something imprinted in the very core of my soul. His presence was overwhelming yet gentle, powerful yet comforting. He was unlike any human I had ever seen, yet he was more real than anything I had ever known. His eyes, oh, his eyes, held eternity within them. They were filled with fire, not the kind that burned, but the kind that illuminated, revealing everything hidden, exposing every truth. When he spoke, his voice was like a river, deep, flowing, endless. It carried wisdom beyond human understanding, yet it filled me with peace that no words could describe. "Lily," he said, "there is something you must know." The sound of my name in his voice sent waves of warmth through me. It was not just a call, it was a recognition, a confirmation that he knew me, truly knew me, beyond my earthly existence, beyond my own understanding of myself. He extended his hand toward me. His hand, marked with scars, but glowing with life, reached out, waiting. I didn't hesitate. As soon as my fingers touched his, a flood of knowledge surged through me. It was not just a vision. It was an immersion into history itself. I saw, I felt, I understood. Images flashed before me, scenes of ancient times, cities rising and falling, kings and warriors, nations at war, people in chains. I saw suffering, pain beyond comprehension. I saw injustice, oppression, entire histories rewritten and erased. But then, I saw something else. Power. A hidden power, buried under centuries of lies. A strength that had been stolen, stripped away, but never truly destroyed. A people destined for greatness, their identity lost but not forgotten. A truth that, if revealed, would change everything. And then, I saw redemption. I saw chains breaking. I saw voices rising. I saw the oppressed standing tall, their eyes blazing with newfound knowledge of who they truly were. I saw a divine restoration, a return to something ancient, something sacred. Tears filled my eyes as the images continued flashing, too many to grasp, too much to contain. I gasped for breath, though I didn't need it here. It was overwhelming, powerful, but most of all, it was clear. This was not just for me. This was a message. A calling. As the final vision faded, Jesus looked into my eyes, and in that moment, I understood, I had to return. I had to share what I had seen. I had to awaken the world to the truth that had been hidden for too long. Because this was not just my story. It was ours. As Jesus held my hand, the golden light around us expanded, wrapping me in warmth, in truth, in something ancient yet alive. I felt as if my very soul was being unraveled, revealing knowledge that had been hidden not just from me, but from an entire people. Then, he showed me. The world around us shifted, and suddenly, I was no longer in the radiant presence of Jesus alone. I was standing in the ancient world, a time before slavery, before colonization, before the rewriting of history. I saw African tribes standing in circles, their feet grounded firmly in the earth, their voices rising like thunder in unified prayer. I felt their connection, not just to God, but to the very fabric of creation itself. They sang with a resonance that shook the heavens, a harmony that blended with the wind, the trees, the rivers, the stars. Their prayers were not just words, they were energy, alive, moving, shaping reality itself. Their hands moved over the sick, and the afflicted were healed. Their elders spoke words of wisdom, and the young received visions of the future. They knew God, not from books, not from institutions, but from direct communion, from an intimacy with the divine that ran through their very blood. This, Jesus said, his voice strong and filled with purpose, is the power that was given to them. I felt it. I saw it. A divine inheritance. But then, the vision changed. The sky darkened. The sound of prayers and songs was replaced with the crack of whips, the cries of families being torn apart. I saw chains, heavy, cruel, binding wrists and ankles. I saw ships crossing the vast ocean, their hulls filled with men, women, and children ripped from their homes. I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't. The suffering was too real. The pain too sharp. They were stripped of their names, their languages, their traditions. I saw them forced to kneel before foreign gods, their sacred ways mocked and outlawed. I saw their drums silenced, their spiritual leaders taken, their wisdom turned into whispers, secrets carried only in the hearts of the desperate. But even in the depths of their suffering, I saw something they could not take away. A light. A light buried beneath oppression, yet still burning. A power hidden, yet still alive. Something unbreakable. Jesus turned to me, his eyes filled with knowing. They tried to bury this power, he said, his voice carrying the weight of generations, but it was never lost. It has been passed down through generations. In prayers whispered in the night. In songs sung in the fields. In the rhythm of the heartbeat, in the movement of the spirit. I saw it, how it endured. How, even in the darkest of times, it remained. The fire had never gone out. And then, the vision changed again. I saw a new generation, people with skin like bronze and hair like wool, their eyes fierce with recognition. I saw them lifting their hands once more, reclaiming the power that had been stolen from them. I saw them healing, prophesying, speaking life into existence. I saw chains breaking, not just physical, but spiritual, mental, generational. The awakening had begun. Jesus placed his hand over my heart. "Now, it is time," he said. "The world will see what was always meant to be." And in that moment, I understood. This was more than history. This was prophecy. As I stood in the presence of Jesus, the golden light surrounding us pulsed with energy. I could still feel the weight of the revelation I had just witnessed, the truth about the spiritual power that had been given to my ancestors, a divine inheritance meant to guide, heal, and transform the world. But before I could fully process it, the vision shifted again. Jesus raised his hand, and before me, history unfolded like a living tapestry. I saw centuries stretch out before me, revealing the deliberate and systematic effort to erase, suppress, and distort the truth. The first thing I saw was education, or rather, miseducation. I saw schools teaching false histories, erasing the truth about Africa's great civilizations, its wealth, its wisdom, its spiritual depth. The textbooks were rewritten, their pages filled with lies, portraying my ancestors as primitive, as lesser, as people without knowledge or significance before their chains. I saw how generations of black children sat in classrooms, absorbing these lies, learning a history that had been manufactured to break them before they even had a chance to rise. They were not taught about the spiritual leaders, the healers, the prophets, the warriors who walked in divine purpose. They were not told about the sacred wisdom that had been passed down through oral traditions, through symbols, through music, through spirit itself. I watched religious institutions play their role. I saw how faith was weaponized, how the same Bible that contained the truth was twisted, manipulated, and used to control rather than liberate. I saw how scriptures that spoke of justice, power, and divine calling were deliberately ignored, while others were distorted to justify slavery, oppression, and silence. I saw how my people were taught to see God as distant, as separate, as someone who only belonged to those who enslaved them. I saw how the spiritual power that once flowed freely in my ancestors was demonized, labeled as dangerous, as forbidden, as something to be feared rather than embraced. I saw the economic systems at work. I saw governments and industries built on the backs of black labor, ensuring that we remained in survival mode, struggling just to make ends meet. I saw policies put in place that deliberately created poverty, mass incarceration, and generational hardship. It was all connected, designed not just to keep us physically oppressed, but spiritually disconnected. And then, I saw the fear. The fear in the eyes of those who orchestrated these systems. They feared this power. Not because it was about physical strength. Not because it was about rebellion. But because it was about leadership. It was about restoration. It was about guiding humanity into a new era. This power was meant to awaken the world, to bring people back to the truth, to reconnect the human spirit to God in a way that had been lost through corruption and greed. Jesus turned to me, his expression solemn yet unwavering. The enemy feared this power, he said, because it was never just about one nation or one people. It was about the destiny of all humanity. And they knew, if your people remembered who they were, they would lead the world into something new. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. The weight of what I was seeing was almost too much to bear. But then, Jesus smiled. A knowing smile. A victorious smile. Their mistake, he said, was thinking that oppression could erase something divine. In that moment, the vision shifted again. I saw sparks of light igniting across the world, people waking up, questioning, seeking, reclaiming what had been stolen from them. I saw the next generation standing with boldness, stepping into their spiritual inheritance, breaking the chains of deception. What had been hidden was rising again. What had been suppressed was awakening. And this time, nothing could stop it. The vision before me shifted again, and I saw something that made my soul tremble, not with fear, but with hope, with power, with destiny unfolding before my eyes. I saw young black men and women rising, not just in politics, not just in business, but in spirit. They were stepping into a power that had always belonged to them, but had been hidden, buried under centuries of deception. And now, they were remembering. I saw them walking in authority, not the kind given by men, but the kind ordained by God. I saw them laying hands on the sick, and the sick were healed. I saw them breaking generational curses, speaking life where there had been death, restoring families that had been shattered by trauma and oppression. I saw them prophesying, not in empty words, but in fire, speaking truths that shook the very foundations of the world. Their voices carried a divine weight, and when they spoke, strongholds crumbled. Then, I saw the churches. They were filled, not just with people, but with power. This was not just another service, not another Sunday ritual. This was war. Their prayers weren't quiet, timid requests. They were declarations, commands, weapons in the spirit. Every word spoken in faith sent ripples through the unseen realm, breaking chains, opening doors, setting captives free. I saw worship like I had never seen before. It was raw, it was unfiltered, it was a sound that reached beyond time itself. It carried the same ancient rhythm I had seen in the visions of the past, the rhythm of warriors, of prophets, of those who knew their God intimately. And then, the vision expanded. I saw black artists, musicians, and writers, but they were not creating just for entertainment. Their art carried power. I saw painters putting divine visions on canvas, images that stirred souls, that awakened something dormant in those who looked at them. I saw musicians composing songs that weren't just music, they were prophetic utterances. The melodies carried healing, the lyrics carried revelation. People listened, and suddenly, their hearts burned with a hunger they couldn't explain. I saw writers penning words infused with the Spirit of God, books, poems, speeches that ignited minds and freed people from deception. Their words spread like wildfire, breaking lies, restoring truth, calling the lost back home. This was more than a movement. This was an awakening. And then, I turned back to Jesus. His eyes, filled with fire and love, looked deep into mine. The power was never lost, he said. It was waiting for them to remember. At that moment, I felt a pulse, like the heartbeat of the universe itself. I knew what I was seeing was not a distant future. It was happening now. The awakening had already begun. As I stood before Jesus, bathed in the golden glow of his presence, a sense of urgency filled the air. His expression changed, where there had been joy and hope, now there was solemnity, a deep knowing that something was still unfinished. Then, the vision shifted again. What I saw next gripped my soul with a weight I had not felt before. I saw division, deep, cutting, and relentless. I saw political conflicts tearing through families, friendships, and communities. People once united by faith, by purpose, now stood on opposite sides, seeing each other as enemies rather than brothers and sisters. I saw anger, shouting, accusations thrown like weapons. I saw religious arguments, not over truth, but over pride. People debating doctrines while missing the presence of God in their midst. Churches split over traditions and interpretations, while outside their walls, the world cried out for healing. I saw generational gaps widening. The elders looked at the young with frustration, believing they had lost their way. The youth looked at the elders with resentment, feeling unheard, unseen. Instead of passing wisdom from one generation to the next, there was misunderstanding, impatience, and silence. I saw social movements corrupted by ego, people who had once fought for the same cause now tearing each other down, competing for power, for recognition. Leaders once driven by a pure mission now consumed by their own influence, their own name. It was chaos. And in the shadows, I saw the enemy. Not in the form of a man, not with horns or a physical presence, but as a whisper, a silent, insidious force that fed the flames of division. The enemy's greatest weapon is division, Jesus said, his voice heavy with sorrow. A single flame can be extinguished, but a wildfire cannot. And that was when I understood. The enemy knew that if the black community ever stood together, united in purpose, in faith, in identity, the world would change forever. So, he used the oldest trick in the book. Divide and conquer. He made them focus on their differences instead of their shared destiny. He made them argue over details instead of standing on the undeniable truth. He made them fight each other so they would forget who the real enemy was. It was a plan as old as time. And it was working. But then, I saw the solution. A new vision unfolded before me. I saw people sitting together in prayer, young and old, men and women, leaders and followers. Their hands were joined, their voices lifting in unity. It was not just any prayer, it was a battle cry, a declaration that they would not be divided, that they would reclaim what had been stolen. I saw honest conversations, not debates, not arguments, but real, raw discussions where people listened, truly listened, to one another. I saw forgiveness. I saw people laying down their pride, their resentment, their past wounds. I saw them choosing unity over ego, faith over fear, forgiveness over bitterness. And as they did, the enemy's whispers grew weaker. The chains of division began to break. The flames that had once burned separately began to merge into something unstoppable. Jesus' voice was soft, but it carried a power that sent shivers through my soul. They must come together, he said, or else, the enemy will use their division to steal their destiny. At that moment, I realized, this was the final battle. Not just against oppression. Not just against injustice. But against the spirit of division itself. The power was returning. The awakening was happening. But only if they chose unity. Jesus' eyes burned with a divine intensity, a fire not of destruction but of purpose, authority, and power. His gaze pierced through me, reaching into the deepest parts of my soul. It was as if, in that single moment, he was transferring a mission, a command, a sacred responsibility directly into my spirit. "Lily, you must tell them," he said, his voice both urgent and unshakable. "They need to prepare now." The vision before me changed again, and I saw it, a wave of darkness approaching. It was not a physical darkness, not just war or political upheaval. It was something spiritual, something unseen but more real than anything in the material world. I felt it creeping across the earth, whispering lies, sowing doubt, planting fear, and bringing chaos. It sought to break the awakening before it could fully rise. But then, I saw a shield of light, vast and unbreakable, surrounding the black community. This shield was not made of money, not of politics, not of earthly power. It was built from faith. It was strengthened by unity. It was fortified by obedience to God. And the darkness could not penetrate it. I saw people standing together in circles, fasting, praying, declaring truth with boldness. They were not afraid. They were prepared. Jesus turned to me again, his expression filled with both urgency and reassurance. They must strengthen their faith. I saw people diving into the Word like never before, no longer reading Scripture as an obligation, but as a weapon, as a roadmap to victory. They understood its power now. They lived by it. They must study my Word. I saw leaders rising up, teachers, prophets, voices of wisdom restoring the lost knowledge, breaking apart false doctrines, revealing what had been hidden for centuries. The people were learning again, not just about God, but about who they truly were, about the legacy they carried, about the spiritual inheritance that had always belonged to them. They must fast and pray. I saw corporate prayer gatherings, not small, timid meetings, but mighty movements, hundreds, thousands of voices crying out, shaking the very foundations of the earth. The sound of their prayers sent shockwaves through the spiritual realm. Chains were breaking. Strongholds were falling. Hearts were being set on fire with divine purpose. They must build communities of trust and accountability. I saw brothers and sisters walking together in unity, holding one another up, supporting one another, protecting one another. No more betrayal. No more competition. No more separation. Instead of tearing each other down, they built each other up. Instead of fighting over leadership, they walked in shared purpose. Instead of being scattered, they became an army. The darkness that had once sought to consume them could not break them, because they were one. And then, Jesus smiled. It was the kind of smile that spoke of assurance, of certainty, of a victory already secured. The enemy will fight, he said. I saw it. The enemy would come with deception, with distractions, with every strategy possible to keep them from awakening fully. But it wouldn't work. Because they were ready now. Because they remembered who they were. Because they knew their God. Jesus' voice rang out, strong and unshakable. But they will win. And with those words, the vision burned into my spirit, into my very being. The time for waiting was over. The time for rising had come. Jesus raised his hand, and in an instant, the vision before me expanded beyond time, beyond borders, beyond anything I had ever imagined. I saw the world transformed. Not just a shift in circumstances. Not just fleeting victories. But a complete reordering of the way things had always been. It started with black men and women stepping into their divine calling, rising as spiritual leaders, not through force, not through political conquest, but through wisdom, faith, and undeniable power. I saw them leading global spiritual movements, their voices carrying weight, their presence undeniable. Nations looked to them, not out of obligation, but out of reverence, out of recognition that something supernatural was at work within them. They walked in authority, not granted by man, but by God himself. I saw churches no longer divided by walls, denominations, or traditions. Instead, true worship filled the earth, transcending man-made limitations. People no longer gathered out of duty but out of hunger, a hunger for the presence of God, a hunger for truth, a hunger for power that was real, tangible, transformative. Then, I saw communities thriving, neighborhoods once plagued by poverty and crime flourishing like gardens in the desert. I saw businesses flourishing, but not just for wealth or greed, they were built on principles of justice, generosity, and restoration. Those who once struggled just to survive now owned, built, and prospered, passing down legacies of abundance to the next generation. I saw hospitals emptying. Not because of medicine, not because of technology, but because people were being healed through faith. The same power I had seen in the ancient world, the power to lay hands on the sick and see them recover, had returned in full force. Doctors stood in awe, unable to explain it. The blind received sight. The paralyzed walked. The terminally ill were made whole. Suffering was replaced by miracles. I saw governments changing, but not through war, not through violence. Through influence. Through wisdom. Through truth that could no longer be denied. I saw nations looking to the black community for spiritual leadership, recognizing that the power they carried was not of this world. And then, the most powerful thing of all, I saw people from every background, every culture, every nation following their example, seeking spiritual truth. No longer deceived by the systems that once kept them blind, they awakened. The veil was lifted. And what had started as an awakening among one people became a global movement, an unstoppable wave of divine restoration. Jesus turned to me, his eyes filled with certainty, with absolute assurance that this future was possible. This, he said, is the future that awaits them. If they rise. If they remember who they are. If they walk in the power that has always been theirs. And in that moment, I knew, this was not just a vision of possibility. This was prophecy. It was waiting to be fulfilled. The question was, would they answer the call? But then, his face darkened. The warmth of the golden light around us dimmed, and a chill swept through the space where I stood. It was not fear that filled me, but a deep and heavy sorrow, a grief that I could feel in the very fabric of my soul. Then, the vision changed. What I saw next made my spirit tremble. I saw riots breaking out in the streets, buildings set ablaze, people screaming, running, but not toward anything, only away from destruction. Communities once strong now crumbled under the weight of their own division. I saw governments collapsing, but there was no victory in it. No freedom. No restoration. Only chaos, confusion, and deception. The old systems fell, but in their place, a new system rose, one that promised peace but brought control. It came subtly at first, whispers of unity, promises of stability, a call to lay down the past and embrace a new world order. But it was a lie. I saw people trading their freedom for security, their faith for comfort, their power for convenience. And the most devastating sight of all. The black community was under attack, not physically, but spiritually. I saw people still holding on to power, but it had been distorted. The gifts, the anointing, the spiritual inheritance that had once been used to heal and restore, was now being misused, twisted, weaponized for selfish gain. I saw leaders who had once been called to shepherd their people now leading them astray. I saw prophets who no longer spoke truth but told the people what they wanted to hear, prophecies of wealth, of comfort, of personal gain, while the true warnings of God went unspoken. I saw churches filled, but not with the Spirit of God, with empty rituals, with performances, with deception. I saw a generation that had the power to break chains instead shackled by their own desires, chasing after influence, fame, and success, while their souls withered. The enemy had not taken their power. He had simply convinced them to misuse it, to let it rot, to sell it for lesser things. And then, I saw the world fall into darkness. Without spiritual leadership, without truth, people wandered aimlessly, clinging to false hope. The deception grew so strong that even the chosen ones struggled to see what was real. And above it all, I saw the enemy watching, smiling, because he had won, not by force, not by war, but by division, by distraction, by twisting the truth just enough to make them forget. Jesus' voice cut through the vision like thunder. This is what the enemy wants, he warned, his voice heavy with sorrow. If they do not rise, if they allow division, the enemy will steal what is theirs. I turned to look at him, my heart pounding. I wanted to ask, was this the future? Was this already set in stone? But before I could speak, the vision shifted again. The darkness did not have to be the final chapter. There was still a choice. There was still a chance to turn back, to rise, to reclaim what had been stolen. Jesus' eyes softened, but the weight of his words remained. Tell them, he said, before it is too late. Jesus stood before me, his presence radiating both unshakable love and divine urgency. His eyes, filled with fire and eternity, locked onto mine. I felt the weight of this moment, the significance of what was being placed in my hands. This was not just a vision. This was a warning, a call, a final opportunity for a people chosen by God to reclaim what had always belonged to them. His voice was steady, yet it carried the power of the heavens. Tell them, Lily. The words rang through me like a command written into my very soul. Tell them that the choice is before them. I saw the choice laid out before me, as clear as day. Two paths. Two futures. One led to division, deception, and destruction, a future where the black community remained fragmented, distracted by battles that were never theirs to fight, weakened by internal conflicts, blinded by the enemy's schemes. A future where their power remained buried beneath selfish ambition, where their voices were silenced not by chains, but by compromise and fear. Division will lead to destruction. But then, I saw the other path. A path where they rose together, standing as one, unshaken, unbreakable, unstoppable. I saw a people who remembered their identity, who embraced their divine calling, who moved in faith, in power, in the Spirit of the living God. I saw their hands healing the sick, their prayers breaking strongholds, their unity forging a shield that no darkness could penetrate. I saw leaders emerging, not seeking power for themselves, but guiding their people into a new era of spiritual awakening. I saw chains breaking, not just physical, but mental, emotional, and generational chains that had bound them for centuries. I saw their voices shaking the nations, igniting revival, leading the world back to God. Unity will lead to victory. Then, the vision ended. The divine light vanished. The golden glow faded. The presence of Jesus withdrew, but not before his final words echoed in my spirit, settling deep into my soul. I gasped. I opened my eyes. I was back in my body. The sirens screamed around me. The paramedics hovered above me, their voices frantic, their hands working to stabilize me. The crushing weight of the accident should have been my only concern. But it wasn't. Because I was no longer the same. I had seen the truth. I had stood before the King of Kings and witnessed the future of my people laid out before me. And now, I was here to tell you. The choice is before you now. The future has been revealed. The warning has been spoken. The calling has been given. Now, the question is, what will you do with it?